Hi everyone. This case study presentation is on tethered cord syndrome in dogs. It's specifically about my dog Journey, who has tethered cord syndrome. And we're going to review some videos today so you can see what it looks like. My name is Anthony DeMarinis. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant and an accredited dog trainer by the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. I'm also a licensed family dog mediator and a fear-free certified professional. My business is DeMarinis Dog Training and Behavior, and you can visit my website at demarinisdogtraining.com, and you can read about the Tethered Cord Syndrome blog post that I put up, which is about Tethered Cord Syndrome and Journey's story specifically. And lastly, if you have any information on tethered cord syndrome in dogs, or you have personally had a dog that's been affected by this, I would love to hear from you and to hear about your story and your journey. If you haven't already read the blog about Journey and tethered cord syndrome, then I encourage you to do so because it'll help you follow along with these videos a lot easier. Before I get started, I just want to make it clear that everyone understands I am not a veterinarian. I'm not trying to pretend to be a veterinarian. I'm a dog trainer and behavior consultant, and I'm very proud to be one. My dog Journey has tethered cord syndrome, and so I decided, because this has been a 3-year journey trying to figure out what my dog's issues were, after going to numerous amounts of neurologists and other doctors, we were finally able to figure out what he had through an MRI at Tufts University. And so I decided that because this was a rare condition that a lot of people, including veterinarians, haven't heard of before, that I wanted to compile a blog as well as video footage of what tethered cord syndrome looks like and the experiences and observations that I've made while having Journey in my life for the past 3 years. So again, just in case you have not looked at the blog, go to my website, demarinisdogtraining.com. Review the blog post first before watching this because it'll make a lot more sense to you. It'll help you understand and break down a lot more of these videos and the things that I'm pointing out. So just to reiterate from the blog post, tethered cord syndrome can be presented in 2 ways. The first is where there's constant tension on the spinal cord, causing constant pressure and pulling on the spinal cord. And usually the spinal cord would be in an abnormal position. And the second way tethered cord syndrome can be presented is where the spinal cord is inelastic, meaning it doesn't have a rubber band-like property to it. So when a normal dog's body would be in motion or is in extension, the spinal cord will extend and move. But with a dog like Journey, when his body is moving or is in extension, his spinal cord is not moving or extending. What was also found on the MRI is that it seems as though Journey's spinal cord is actually longer than it should be for the size and structure of his body. Tethered cord syndrome is a relatively new discovery in dogs, so there's not a lot of information out there right now about tethered cord syndrome in dogs. In fact, just by random coincidence, I was actually very lucky that the neurologist that Journey was seeing at Tufts University happens to be one of the only doctors in the country who actually knows what this condition is and has performed the most surgeries on this condition at this time. What the neurologist explained to me is that because this is a newer discovery in dogs, they are looking at the information that's out there right now with people who have tethered cord syndrome to see what the similarities and comparisons are so that they can understand this condition better. So there are a lot of secondary symptoms that can develop in tethered cord syndrome patients, and a lot of this has been looked at from what has been found and discovered from people who have this condition. In this presentation, you're actually going to see video footage. That's what the majority of this presentation actually is. It's video footage of Journey and his episodes and the symptoms that he has as a result of tethered cord syndrome. So in people, it's very common that you're going to see secondary symptoms such as urinary incontinence with intermittent leaking, lower leg weakness, muscle cramping, abnormal tingling sensations running through the body, especially in the limbs, as well as orthopedic abnormality issues where people have reported that they have abnormal rotation in their limbs. And again, those are the most commonly found symptoms in people who have been diagnosed with tethered cord syndrome. In dogs, most commonly presented secondary symptoms are intermittent pain in the spinal and lumbar areas. Usually this tends to look like a sharp pain. Cramping is another symptom. Intermittent loss of control of limbs. This could be from cramping or from some tingling sensation that's running through the dog's limbs or even across the entire dog's body. You're going to see that with the videos of Journey. And usually before or after an episode where the dog has lost control of their limbs, you're going to see stiffness in the dog's body, staring typically at the location where the episode occurred, exploring the limb or area that was affected at that time, and licking and chewing on those areas. Urinary incontinence, such as intermittent leaking, is another symptom. This does occur with Journey. And lastly, anxiety. So dogs who suffer from pain, especially undiagnosed pain where we don't know that the dog is actually in pain, will tend to have a higher rate of having anxiety. So in cases like Journey where pain is intermittent, or the pain or tingling sensations that are running through his body, they increase the anxiety because he doesn't know what's necessarily going on and it's something that's out of his control. So you will see that dogs who have pain or discomfort will suffer from a higher rate of anxiety, which Journey does suffer from. It's something that has actually increased over time since getting him as a puppy. And lastly, for those of you who have experience with dogs who have epilepsy or focal seizures, you will see that some of the video footage presents itself as if he is having a seizure or epileptic type episode. And so based off the MRI findings, it is confirmed that he does have tethered cord syndrome despite being previously diagnosed with epilepsy. So let's get started and check out some of the video clips. So he's going to run away from himself right here. It was very common when he was a pup. You just saw he started sniffing his back leg and then he laid down and now he's starting to lick and chew on his leg. When he was a young puppy, he used to run away from himself a lot when an episode was starting to occur, most likely because he was afraid and uncomfortable and he didn't know what was going on. And this is just a continuation of the video. You'll see right here he kicks out his back leg. This was actually the behavior that I noticed when he was a young puppy, when I brought him home at 14 weeks old, where he would just start losing control of his back legs. It was the first sign that I noticed there's a problem here. He would also run away or scurry away from himself when he was having an episode, probably because it was making him nervous and it was uncomfortable or painful. You'll actually see him do it right here. In this next clip, I have it in slow motion because it does move very fast. So you're going to see that he explores his front leg a couple times right there. And then he starts to scurry away from himself because there's some sensation, possibly pain running through his body. You can see again, he started to even lick himself a little bit. And he's very stiff and still right here, not moving. And then all of a sudden, he starts to move both his front legs. And then again, right there with his back one, it goes up a little bit. And then because he's uncomfortable and not sure what to do, he lays down in his bed. In this clip, you could see that he's sniffing and investigating his front legs and feet. He's also very still and very stiff with his body. His feet aren't moving at all. Usually I notice this occurs when an episode seems a little more painful and makes him feel a little more uncomfortable. In this video, he had an episode and his front foot was hurting, and as he moves, you can see he's kind of limping a little bit, and he's kind of swinging it out again. And you can see he's in some form of discomfort because he then starts licking both of his front feet. In this video clip, you're going to see that he sniffs or investigates his entire body, his front legs, his back area, both the right and left side. It's almost like there's a bug flying over him or some sensation is running through his body that makes him feel very uncomfortable, even confused almost. And again, if you notice, he's just sniffing, or maybe I should say, investigating or exploring these areas on his body that seem to be getting affected by whatever's occurring right now. One thing that I know a lot of times is before an episode actually occurs or before he loses control of his limbs, he'll actually start sniffing those areas, just like you're seeing here. You're also going to see his ears twitch in this video a couple of times, right there, and there again. It's another sign that I started noticing that started to occur with these episodes, is that his ears would just twitch. He's very still, if you notice. There's no joy in his body. There's no movement. This is more so after an episode has occurred and he was feeling uncomfortable and he'll lay down. It's very common that after an episode he'll lay down and sit very still. And just because the episode had already occurred doesn't mean it's not still occurring, because if you notice in this video, he still continues over the video. Random things are still occurring, like even now his leg just kicked out, he was sniffing his front legs, etc. This is another video, him on the couch, and you'll see he sniffs himself a lot in the areas that seem to be affected. He'll even lick himself and sometimes even chew on himself during these episodes. And you can see there's a lot of sniffing and investigating going on of the areas that are being affected with this potential sensation that's running through his body, this weird feeling that's occurring. So right before I turned the camera on, he was actually swatting his face with his front feet, and then he started shaking his head like you saw. You'll notice in this video that there's a lot of weird movements where he's sniffing his genital area, he licks his genital area, he starts sniffing his front and back feet, he'll start sniffing his tail. That back leg stays up the entire time, even if he's not back there, even if he's just looking at his front feet like now. You also see some ears twitching again. You can see it's very uncomfortable for him. You'll see random things too, like he looked at the outlet, now he's looking upward. It's almost like he doesn't know what to do with himself. Early on as a puppy, one of the things that I observed was that Journey would start either sniffing, nibbling, or licking his limbs, starting at the top, working his way down to his toes. And I've learned from a few veterinarians that this could actually be a sign of a neurological issue. This clip is in slow motion because of how fast Journey's leg kicks upward. So the neurologist who diagnosed Journey with Tethered Cord Syndrome said to me that one of the things that could be possible is that he might actually be having cramps in his leg, and that might be the reason why he's losing control of his limbs. The neurologist went over some of the findings that are reported from people who have tethered cord syndrome. And it's interesting that one of the things that is reported is cramping in the legs. So it's assumed that there could be a possibility that some of these episodes where a dog loses control of their limbs might be from cramping. One of the other interesting observations I started to make early on was that he would start excessively licking or chewing on his body before or after an episode would actually occur. And he'll also just excessively lick or chew on himself when there's possibly a sensation or some weird feeling that makes him uncomfortable or even painful running through his body, like you can see here in this video. Some of you may be wondering if he chews or licks on specific areas of his body, and the answer is no. He'll usually do this before or after an episode is going to occur that involves him losing control of his limbs, but he'll also do this even if he doesn't lose control. It could just simply be a sensation or pain running through his body. One of the other things that was an interesting observation is this. It's almost like there's a bug on his back. He constantly looks or turns all the way to investigate himself, like as if something is on him. You'd see he's just sniffing himself like, ow, ow, something's happening here. And he runs away from himself here and then lays down. This is a very common presentation when he was a really young pup. In this video, I think he's about 8 months or so, but when I had got him at 14 weeks, between that entire period, one of the main observations I noticed was he would sniff himself, kick his legs out, and run away from himself. You're going to see he looks at his tail right here like there's a bug on it or something. He whips his neck around right here and then starts sniffing and investigating. And then you see he throws his body over here. Some dogs might do that when they're a little restless, but that is not what is happening here. So you'll see he's going to get up right here and he whips his neck around to look at his back end area, his leg. He kind of gets up like he's a little confused or like he sees something and is nervous, and he casts out right here. He does a shake off, almost like maybe he's trying to reset. And he still kind of looks a little weird and stiff. And then again, he just casts out again right here. This is a video of what was supposed to be a training session where I asked him for a hand target, and then he immediately whips his neck around to his right back leg and then goes to his front left leg, which is caught off the camera. Then you'll see right here, when I ask him again, he actually scurries away from me, almost like he's nervous and afraid. His ears were actually pulled back, and he was probably in some physical pain, and that also caused him to possibly feel anxious and nervous because he feels uncomfortable and doesn't know what to do. In this video, right after that episode occurred, I decided to take a toy out to try and play with him, try and play a little tug of war, just something to see if he would respond to me after an episode. But again, he was feeling too uncomfortable and probably nervous. So to make things more interesting, at about 2 years of age, Journey started to sit on his rump area. That's my puppy Quest right there. As you see in this video, he's sitting more on his rump, like his lower back area, with his feet facing the ceiling. Sometimes he'll even sit on the couch with his legs outward, just like a person would sit on the couch, actually. It's kind of interesting. And the neurologist explained that dogs who have spinal cord issues will tend to sit this way. It could be because of pain. I do notice that Journey will sit this way when he seems to be in pain, or sometimes after an episode occurs that seemed a little bit more painful. It's also interesting to point out that Journey also will sit this way when something scares him, like fireworks, for example, or if I drop something suddenly by accident and he gets startled. And I attribute that to possibly being because he gets afraid and anxious, his body maybe tenses up and he feels more uncomfortable or stiff, and he might sit this way because of that. That's just something that I personally think is going on. In the next few video clips, I want you to really pay attention to the interactions that Journey and I have together. You're going to see that there are a bunch of clips where we're playing or training or making an attempt at doing those things, but you'll see, like in this video here, when I'm trying to make attempts at playing or training with him, he just can't do it because he's having an episode. We might be training or having a play session and everything will be going fine, and then all of a sudden an episode like this will start to happen. I also want to just point out that the videos that you're going to see, like this one here, were actually videoed on purpose so the veterinarian could see it, because there was really no way to really describe this clearly without the vet actually being able to see something like this. And you'll see, like, he's waving his head, he's sniffing his limbs, he's whipping his neck back, sniffing his back area, his back limb area. So you'll see that there are a lot of unusual behaviors, which is why I needed to take videos of these episodes during our sessions. So I just want to point that out, that these videos were taken on purpose for the veterinarian. So if you see that it looks a little ridiculous that I'm trying to make attempts at playing with him in situations like this, it's so the veterinarian could see that a dog who's obsessed with playing couldn't play because he was feeling physically uncomfortable or something was actually physically going on. You'll see here I ask Journey for a hand target, and he does it and then immediately has an episode. The reason I show you this clip again is because issues like this were the main reasons why I started realizing that my dog has a problem. And so what I mean is that I really was struggling to train Journey to develop a relationship with him through training and play. There were a lot of struggles, and if you notice in these videos, every time I tried having a training session or a play session with him, what ended up happening was he started having an episode. And what I started to realize over the course of time was that as we were having our sessions, he would be having episodes, and he started learning to associate training and playtime as this negative thing, or this thing that produced some negative feeling, or these episodes, whatever it was in his mind. But what I started to really notice was that training and myself started to become aversive because there was always something negative attached to those interactions, those training sessions. You'll see here there was a training session I was trying to do, and right there he just kicked his back leg up in the air. So you could see this was going to be a training session, and it ended up not being one. And this is just the video again in slow motion. You can see he kicks it up right there. Again right there. And then a third time right there. So like I was saying, this really affected our relationship. It affected us being able to bond together. It affected our training that I was attempting to do with him. It affected any type of play that I tried to do to interact with him. It really made things very challenging, so much so that because episodes occurred so frequently during training, if I so much as presented food to him, he would turn his head and run away. Food became so aversive to this dog that I could not hand him a piece of food or a treat of any kind for basically a year or year and a half. So I really had to use playing with toys when I could to really motivate him, because that's what he really loved. That's what turned him on. That's what made him very driven. So he really loves toys. So I had to really tap into that and use that to my advantage to train. And it really helped me in my training skills because prior to him, I really didn't have much experience training a dog with toys by teaching them different skills. So just like in this video, I was trying to shape him to go around the stool, and the toy was the reward. I really took a big step back and realized that there was really no reason right now for me to have to teach Journey specific training skills, some of which were probably really arbitrary to him, especially when he already started having these negative experiences with me. And as a result, I was getting frustrated and probably putting more pressure on him than was needed. So what I decided to do is get us an agility coach to help us learn agility together. It was one of the reasons that I actually had gotten Journey, because I wanted to explore more about dog sports, and I had no experience in those areas, so I wanted to learn more about sports, especially agility. And what I did was, aside from agility and some other fun things like hiking and swimming, I didn't do any other training with him because it just put too much pressure on him. He didn't enjoy it. And it was affecting our relationship a lot because there were so many negative experiences due to Tethered Cord Syndrome that it was best just to leave those things alone and visit them at another time. So basic training skills really took a back seat. I just focused on things he really enjoyed, like hiking, as you could see in this video, and swimming, other outdoor activities. Sometimes I could sprinkle in little training sessions like off-leash recall because I was able to make those into fun little games. And then when Journey turned a year old, we accidentally stumbled upon sheep herding, and Journey was keen and we both enjoyed it, so it became another sport that we both are still learning about. And sheep herding became another thing that really helped us develop our relationship together as a team. And then what happened as a result of agility and sheep herding was, at about a year and a half to 2 years of age, we were able to start training again and teaching some basic skills, learning some heel work together, something we're still learning. And although I wasn't able to start off using food, I was able to start using toys. And today he's taking food from me about 60 to 70% of the time when I hand it to him during training, which is a huge, huge improvement considering food became so aversive to him. The biggest takeaway for me on this journey that I want to share with you is that we are our dog's voice. We're the ones who need to advocate for them and their well-being. Unfortunately, our dogs can't tell us what they're feeling or if something's wrong, so it's our job as their caretaker to be the ones to advocate and speak up for them. I hope that this was helpful and educational to you in understanding how health and medical issues could really affect our dogs as well as their behavior. Thanks so much for watching and being interested in our journey.